The best of the week on Relevant Radio.
All right, so avoiding family arguments over the 4th of July, right? Which is a day, it's supposed to be a day of gratitude, right? Family, food, fireworks, celebration, right? Especially this year is going to be particularly celebratory, of course. I hate to admit this, but I remember the 200th anniversary of our country. I mean, I was in college, and I remember some pretty big parties. It seemed to me, I don't know, maybe it's because I was just younger and, more in that whole party kind of mode in college, but it seemed to me that there was more excitement around 200 than there is around 250, but I'm kind of old. And Jim, what do you think?
Well, they made a special quarter, right? The bicentennial quarter. So when I was little, that was a big deal to find a bicentennial quarter. You can still find them once in a while.
I'll bet my mother has them. My mother has quite the coin collection. I'll bet she's
awesome.
got some of those bad boys, yeah. So anyway, but you arrive at but for a lot of people, family gatherings tend to feel less like a picnic and more like walking into a minefield, right? So, listen, you're hoping for peace and fun and celebration, and then somebody makes a comment about politics or parenting or religion or money or marriage or your kids, right? Or the country, or, what's wrong with young people today, or something, right? And all of a sudden, man, it gets hotter than the grill, right? So how does this happen? I think there's 4 main reasons why we have, some tense family gatherings sometimes. So I think the first one, and not necessarily in any particular order, but is that, family knows where the hot buttons are because the family helped install all of them. Right? You've been together forever, and you know each other pretty well, and you know which ribs to poke that are going to get the best reaction or the strongest reaction, right? So, a stranger can make a rude comment, and generally you just kind of brush it off. But when your mother or a sibling or your uncle or your aunt or one of your adult children says something, we take it personally. It can reopen old wounds or trigger past memories of being criticized or ignored or compared to your older brother or dismissed as being, young and unimportant or misunderstood, right? It's how a small comment can create a large reaction inside of us because it triggers these old memories. The argument's not always about what was said today. It's often about what was said years ago, right? But the past can drop right into the present. All of a sudden, man, we get triggered about something that you always, disrespect me. You always pick on me, or nothing that I do is ever good enough. Right? So, we have these preconceived opinions also about the person making the comment. Uncle Hank, he's always critical. Uncle Hank always hates the Pope, doesn't matter who he is, right? You know who, he's always picking a fight about the president, right? He's a Democrat, or whatever it is, right? So we got these preconceived notions, so we're on high alert, waiting for them to, launch a grenade our way, and man, we're ready for it, right? So family knows what hot buttons to push, and they can do that. Sometimes they think it's going to be fun to stir the pot, right? You always got some relative who thinks it's fun to lob a grenade in and then go the other way, while everyone else is now scrambling and thinking, how much fun that is. Second reason I think that family gatherings trigger conflict is we tend to regress when we are around family. We may be grown adults now with jobs, mortgages, children, responsibilities, all that stuff. But the moment we walk back into the old family system with the parents and, aunts and uncles, we start feeling like we're 14 all over again, right? All of a sudden we're just a kid. And they're the grown-ups. The responsible oldest child, that's me, becomes the controlling oldest sibling, right? The overlooked middle child starts feeling overlooked again. No one's paying any attention to me. The peacemaker starts trying to manage everyone else's emotions, just like they did 10 years ago. The parent still treats the adult children like children. The in-laws feel judged. The married couple feels pulled between two families. So people are not only reacting to the conversation, they're reacting to their old role in the family again, right? the past drops into the present. Right? So that doesn't end too well generally. Right? Number 3, I would say, is expectation. Holidays are loaded with expectations. And expectations are breeding grounds for disappointment. That's true in all areas of life, right? So, I mean, at the picnic, we expect everyone to be grateful, happy, relaxed, patriotic, polite, sober, generous, respectful, easy to be around, right? Fun, loving. But people often showed up tired or stressed or, with a burning opinion, or, they're already irritated before they get out of the car because of the traffic, or, they got into an argument in the car on the way there, or whatever, right? When the fantasy of a perfect family day crashes into reality, people get frustrated, right? And so they may not be frustrated with you, but I'm frustrated with the argument we had on the way here, or the fact that I just realized I forgot to bring, the cooler, or I left the hamburgers at home on the countertop or whatever, and that carries over. 4th reason, I think, is that actually the 4th of July, the date itself, the weather adds fuel to the fire. The heat, travel, people travel out of town oftentimes, alcohol, politics, noise, tired kids, different parenting styles, right? When you get together with your siblings, you all got kids now, and some of them let some stuff slide, others don't. People stay longer than they should, right? And I think of the 2 things I would highlight, I think, particular to the 4th of July, is the heat, right? People get hot, they get a little cranky. And then, of course, the alcohol. Alcohol does more to fuel family discord than any other thing I can think of, right? And I tell you, I have yet to hear anyone ever say, we were fussing and fighting and nobody was getting along, and then we started drinking and everything got better. I don't know anybody who's ever said, before we were drinking, not so good. Once the alcohol showed up, everybody got happier. Generally, alcohol does not improve the situation, but it's a hot day. You're likely to have a few more of those 12-ounce beverages to hydrate, because I don't know what percent of beer is actually water, but a lot of it. So it's part of the argument, right? So what can you do with all of this, all right? Well, you have to have the right frame of mind. The goal is not to win the argument. The goal is to remain free enough to love your family without surrendering your peace, your dignity, or your self-control. So I have 8 practical tips to avoid unnecessary arguments. So you may want to write these down, get a piece of paper and a pencil, right? First, decide before you arrive what kind of person you want to be, okay? So say to yourself, today I will be calm or charitable. I will be mature. I'll be firm when I need to. I do not need to correct every wrong opinion, of which there will be a lot of them. Not my job to straighten everybody out here today. Right? I do not need to attend every argument that I'm invited into. And that happens, right? It's a lot of times, hey, Doug, hey, what's your opinion about this new pope? I'm not sure about, right? I don't need to, just because I'm invited in, I don't necessarily need to give an opinion. And I do not need to prove I'm right in order to, keep my dignity about me, right? So here's the deal. Prior proper planning is critical. You got to get out ahead of it. You got to plan how you're going to react when buttons get pushed, right? Prior proper planning is critical. Number 2, know your triggers. Ask yourself, before you get to the picnic, what topics usually get me hooked? If you know the trap that you have a hard time resisting, you're less likely to step into it, right? A trigger is not an excuse to behave badly. It is information. It tells you this is where I need to be especially careful. Again, prior proper planning is critical, right? So if you know that just going into it, that, Uncle Henry's 3rd wife really gets on your nerves and annoys you, and she always has this way of asking you questions about your kids, like, Well, that's an interesting haircut. How did you decide to get that? Right. And that's the kind of thing that's going to make you crazy, right? You get out ahead of it. You know that his wife is going to, be a trigger for you. And then you can avoid stepping on that thing. And because you know what's going to come, you get out ahead of it. Prior, proper planning is critical. Number 3, stop trying to change people at the picnic table. Okay? 4th of July gathering is probably not the best time to finally convince Uncle Bob that his political worldview is wrong, or to correct every theological error that Aunt Gladys has, right? Or to shape up, your siblings who aren't parenting properly, or straighten out someone with an erroneous family memory, or some, social commentary that you disagree with, right? So it's not your job to change people or to fix them, at least not on that day, right? So before you respond to somebody's comment, ask yourself, is this the right time for this conversation? Is this the right place for this conversation? Is this even my responsibility to have this conversation? Will this help, or will it only create another family explosion, right? Just give up on the idea of trying to change people. It ain't going to happen. Again, prior, proper planning is critical, all right? 4, use some short, calm boundary statements, right? A boundary does not need to be dramatic, okay? Doesn't need to be a speech. It doesn't need to have an insult attached to it, right? It could just be something simple like, hey, you know what? On our nation's birthday, I'm not going to talk politics. Okay? Yeah. I'd rather enjoy being with you than arguing about which soccer team is the best. You could say something like, I hear you, but I'm not talking about my marriage today. Or, you know what? I see it differently, and I'm okay with that, right? Again, prior, proper planning is critical. Number 5, lower the temperature instead of raising it. The temperature's already hot enough on the 4th of July. Don't need to raise it anymore. Most arguments escalate because each person adds a little more heat. They talk a little faster, a little louder. They start using more declarative sentences, right? Pausing a little bit just to acknowledge that the other person's perspective has some merit tends to diffuse the situation, right? So use phrases such as, well, you may be right about part of that, right? No one's 100% wrong, right? Perhaps. Or, well, I need to think about that. I hadn't thought of it quite that way. Or, well, I can see why this is important to you. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay? So come up ahead of time with some sentences that kind of just, set some boundaries, okay, and lower the temperature. Again, prior, proper planning is critical. Number 6, I like this one. Change the topic. So come up with a list of non-controversial topics you can discuss. So like, hey, Uncle Joe, tell me about your new car. And Gladys, how's your job going? What's new with the kids, right? Getting folks to talk about the good things that are going on in their life is a great way to lighten the conversation and direct it away from trouble topics, right? Give a compliment and ask a question shows you're interested in their life, okay? So come up with a list of non-controversial things you could talk to, everybody about at the picnic. Again, prior, proper planning is critical. 7, change the setting, right? If the conversation is heating up, do not just sit there and hope it magically improves. Physically move. Go to the kitchen, check on the kids, take out the trash, refill some drinks, take a walk outside, start a game, ask somebody about their garden or their vacation, right? A little exercise, walking around a little bit will help clear your mind and remove you from the danger. Again, Prior proper planning is critical. Number 8, one of my favorite ones, and I think perhaps the most important one here is come up with a code word for you and your spouse to use if one of you sees the other heading for trouble, or if one of you needs the other to come in and pull them out of a difficult situation. So the code word or phrase could be something like, honey, did you remember to bring the lawn chairs? Right? So if your spouse is in the middle of a conversation and you can see this thing starting to heat up, to just kind of intervene from it and say, honey, did you remember to bring the lawn chairs? Is your spouse's indication that you're noticing things are getting a little bit tense, and his or her opportunity to say, I don't remember, let me go check. And then he's out of the situation, right? Or if your spouse is caught in a conversation that they're not able to get out of, they could catch your attention and say, hey, sweetie, did you remember to bring the lawn chairs? Which means come over here and bail me out because I'm in trouble and I need to escape, right? So for my wife and I, the code word is spinach. Now, I'll spare you the reasons why it's spinach. But, when we're at a gathering or whatever, any sentence that contains the word spinach is either a signal for help or a suggestion that you're getting carried away, Doug, and you need to calm down. Normally, it's my wife who calls the spinach on me because I'm the one who gets a little worked up sometimes. Okay, so come up with the code word for you and your spouse to use if you need to get bailed out or if you see things heading in the wrong direction. Again, prior proper planning is critical.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app, free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.